Good morning to all my friends out there in the Central Time Zone. My name is Bill Brayton, and today's presentation is the RE5R05A internal. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your lunch hour to hang out and get some education. But first, before we go, of course, we've got to take care of the business here. So today's presentation is sponsored by our good friends at TransStar Industries. I'd like to thank them for their continued support. And now we have a short video for you guys.
I'm Dave. This is my cage. All right, welcome to Dave in the Cage, my favorite place to be. It's where I get my hands dirty. It's where I get to check out new stuff. Programming. If you're not doing it, you're missing the money or you're paying for it at the end when you should have done it up front. If you're paying somebody to come, a remote programmer, if you're buying expensive subscriptions, if you're towing it to the dealer, let TransStar help you save money with our wrap kit. Remote assisted programming. Everything you need, one box, and it's free. Pay per use. But to have everything you need in one box, and it's simple, is free. When you get the wrap kit, it's as simple as opening the box, plugging it into the OBD, plug it into your wall outlet, make a phone call. The rest is done. It's that simple. Either contact your sales rep or go to transtar1.com/wrap info. It's that simple, and you're on your way to programming in-house. Saves you time and money, and makes for a happy customer at the end.
Okay. This is a really brilliant idea. I know a lot of shops out there are a little intimidated by reprogramming because it involves a laptop. It involves getting on the internet, plugging it into the car, changing things around in the car, and there's always the risk of, well, what happens if I fail and it trashes the computer and I have to buy another computer? And this really takes the guesswork out of it. I know in your handout there at the back, there's a thing that shows what is covered. I think we have the big three, Nissan, Honda, and they're set to add more product lines to this box. It's really a great thing that they just are able to reprogram it through the box here. And you know, for those of you who have not been reprogramming at your shop, like the guy says, you're giving the money away. And so this way enables you to keep the car in house and make a little extra dough and make your customer happy because their car isn't getting towed all over the place. So moving on, here's our part of our schedule. There's more dates to follow. We've got a lot of great information coming up for you guys. I'm going to be doing, my next one's going to be the 845 RE intro. That's the Chrysler Dodge 8-speed rear-wheel drive. Then after that, I'm up for the hydraulics class. Love, you know, if you know me, you know I love hydraulics and figuring things out with the schematics, and sometimes they can be hard to read and a little overwhelming. Well, I'm going to help sort that all out in that seminar and help you out with making it easier, educating you on how to read those hydraulics and how it can help you fix problems. So lots of great information coming up all the way through the year. And so once again, thank you for taking the time out of your day so we can give you some world-class information here. I know it seems like Expo was just yesterday, but it was back in October. And we've already got our date set, October 19th through the 22nd. Once again, it's going to be at Paris, Las Vegas. We were there last year. If you weren't there last year, you missed a great show. I highly recommend that you make plans to attend. Great tech info, great management info, great trade show floor this year. It was huge. And yeah, it was very nice. And this year, it's going to be even better. So make sure you pencil in the dates, October 19th through the 22nd. Any questions or comments? Please send emails to webinars@atra.com. If you have any questions if there's any questions that you may have as we go through the material, please feel free to type the question into the questions box there, and we'll hold things up, and we'll get your question answered straight away. Also, this year we are including the handout as a PDF that you can click on and download should you have not gotten the handout with the email, the confirmation email that was sent to you. There should be a link there to click on for the internal PDF, and if you click on that, it'll download straight away, and you can follow along with your handout. And that's a great version of this presentation to print out. Excuse me. Okay, into the RE5R05A. We've got some updates as we go through the show. Some of them go all the way up to 15. That's as late as I could find the published dates for these models, and you'll see that when we get further down the road here on the gear ratio changes as well. So there have been a ton of them out there. I'm sure for the most part, we've been seeing these in our shop for the infamous radiator breakdown and the water job. So these are very popular units, a lot of them out there. And of course, to diagnose correctly, we need to know how they work, what's applied when, so we can focus in on that based on whatever shift is having an issue. Now, there's two apply charts, the floor model and the column model. The main difference is over here on the left side. On the floor shift model, it has a D4321, and the shift upshifts in those particular ranges. And on the column shift model, we've got it manual 5 through 4321, and the shift ranges. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference in the shift patterns from column shift to floor shift model. So it's very important that you have these charts close at hand when we're diagnosing shifting problems. Our solenoid apply chart is just as critical as our clutch apply chart, because we need to know what's functioning when. Say, for example, I have a 2-3 shift problem, which we will be talking about here shortly. Let's say it's not there when it's supposed to be there. The 1 to 2, going and going and going. Next thing you know, it's fourth gear, fifth gear, something other than what was supposed to be doing. Well, if you called me on the tech line, the first thing that I would ask you is what is the computer commanding when that shift is supposed to be there? Okay, most of the time the answer is, yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, great. Well, we need to drive it with the scan tool on it and or record and watch it as the shifting concern or missing shift or shift concern happens, and see what exactly the computer's commanding as that shift issue is happening. And so Well, I can't do that because I'm a single guy garage and it's hard for me to do that. Well, and then I would say, we want to shoot a movie and get that information so we can come back in and look at, okay, it was 25 miles an hour, some XYZ happened, and then it went to fourth and fifth gear. Well, what we go and shoot a movie and we watch at 45 miles or 35 miles an hour, what was commanded, we might see something that we didn't see while we were driving it with their scan tool on our lap. So very critical to have the solenoid apply chart with your scan tool so that we can observe what the computer is happening. So that's like the first step in determining whether it's an inside or an outside problem. One of the most critical decisions to be made when diagnosing even one of our own units. Okay, solenoid identification and resistances. You'll see that 1 through 6 all have 3.9. Number 7, early to mid 2004, 10 to 15, 2004, 20 to 40. So you want to make sure that you get the correct resistance solenoid in the correct application to prevent any sort of trouble code issues. Valve body identification. We've got the type 1 here. Clearly, this has the external controller, and that has the shift control box on the internal connector in the harness there. And the shift box stores the hydraulic corrections and learned values for initial shifting. So when they put this in the car and they programmed it up, this has the initial base settings for the car. So what I would say is this, is when you're swapping valve bodies, I would be inclined to keep this harness with the car just to prevent any kind of communication or funky shift issues in between car to car, unit to unit. It just would prevent a lot of headaches. Okay, so that's type 1. Here we go to type 2. TCM's now mounted internally onto the valve body. We've got the single green connector that plugs into the external connector. We can see the cast for the unused front brake, forward brake solenoid, which quite frankly never made it to the transmission. That's the easy way to tell the difference between 1 and 2. Now here's the late type 2. We got one green internal connector with the one external black connector. The casting's gone for the solenoid. Okay, and it's got the same controller. The type 2 early and the type 2 late are interchangeable as an assembly. You don't interchange parts between because this has the 3-ball channel casting, and the 3-ball and 5-ball channel casting and the plates are completely different, and that'll definitely lead you to Heartbreak Hotel if you start intermixing those parts. Here's the type 1 and early type 2 valve layout. Most prominent features are the outboard neutral reverse accumulator pistons, and then down below where the cooler bypass valve is, there is no spring and check ball, pressure relief ball right there. So when we go, we go to, all right, here's the channel casting, the 5 check ball channel casting. You'll see how quite a bit of difference between the 5 and 3 ball castings here. So you can't really mix those up, but don't try. Here's the 2004 and up type 2 valve body. You can see, and it's in red there because this did not get into your handout. So you might want to make a note on this page that this is the 2004 and up type 2 valve body. You can see the neutral reverse accumulator pistons are now inboard, old ones outboard. This type, the type 1, I shouldn't say old and new. There's type 1 outboard, type 2 late inboard, and number 18, of course, is the addition of a blow-off check ball and spring. Here's the call out for the previous page. Note also in red there, it's the 2004 up type 2 valve body title. You might want to pencil that into your handout. Here you can see the major differences in the type 3 valve body. It's completely different casting, so it's completely different plate. For all models, here's the small parts. The filters always face up. And it's interesting, the check ball in the circle here looks like a bathtub. It was very strange. I had to go back and take this apart, and yeah, because this was a picture I didn't make, and sure enough, yeah, this, because if you look at it, it's like, oh, it looks like a check ball bathtub right there, but the spring sits down in the hole. The check ball just sits almost flush there. And of course, I love hydraulics, so I couldn't go past the 2002 to the mid-04 hydraulic schematics that we printed up. We had this in a previous seminar book. We had all 5 ranges. I didn't feel that it was necessary to get all 5 speeds in there. This is just a basic overview of the hydraulics for the earlier units. Notice the one thing we can tell that this is an earlier unit is the accumulator pistons right here are outboard. So this would be the type 1, type 2 early with the outboards, and type 2 late has them inboard. We'll be looking at more schematics later because I know you love it. Okay, so then they came out with a 2. Now the type 3, and you might want to make a note on your handout there again because this is in red. This is the type 3 valve description, 2006, roughly 2009. This has, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, there is now just a single inboard NR accumulator piston. So that's the, and that's actually the major difference right there is on the type 3 plate, type 3 body. Here's the call outs for the 2006 to 2009 type 3. I have to put up a note on that page as well. And then, last but not least, they came out with a 4th design plate, a 4th design valve body. The 4th design is the same. The valve body itself is the same as the 3rd, except for the separator plate. Now, there's some ways that how you tell them apart it's very difficult without removing the between the 3rd and the 4th, without removing the controller to see that it only has 1 pressure switch, because all other levels have 5 pressure switch. This one only has 1. I'll show you that here in just a second. And you might think that that's okay, but to use retro back to the 3rd, but the plate, because the pressure switches have been eliminated, they didn't take away the castings, they simply eliminated the holes in the pressure plate. Okay, we'll see that right here. The gaskets are the same for the third, from the fourth to third. The check ball locations, fourth to third, and the springs are all in the same location in the third design. I want to say huge props and thanks to Jeff Parlee at Sonex for help out with this valve body information. Here's a Type 4 valve body. Looks just the same. Difference is these castings, the castings may be the same, but there's no holes in the pressure plate where the castings go. Okay, now we'll see the difference in the controllers. There's two different types. There's the Boss and Hitachi. This is pretty much the one we've become familiar with. But here we see there is the one singular pressure switch. This is the straightaway giveaway that this is the Type 4 valve body and TCM setup. You can see the bosses here where the switches used to be. Excuse me. Okay, now we've got the Hitachi, much more clear where the pressure switches used to be and where the low clutch is. Switch is the only one that they've left in there. These TCMs are interchangeable as long as they come from the same vehicle and are programmed to the car. Okay, here we have, excuse me, here we have the air checks, very critical air check locations, and I've left all the other passages designations off. The high-low reverse clutch, we'll be talking about that in a minute. That's the other critical area that we're going to be paying attention to here. Just a second. Hard parts. Armada and Titan V8 have the longer stator support tube. Now that's measured, very critical here, that's measured without the pump body on the stator support. It from the flat aluminum surface to the top of the stator tube is 3.5 inches for the Armada and Titan V8 and 3.125, 3.25 on all others. So if we've got a longer tube, we have to have, of course, a longer input shaft. 8.250 as opposed to all others being 7.375. And ne'er do the tween shall meet, because you will definitely have some assembly issues there. Here is our sprag rotation. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to make sure that you get these after you disassemble these for cleaning or installing a new one, that you get them back in properly and the sprags rotate the correct way. Planetary ID. We've got a 4 or 5 pinion planet, depending on whether it's the truck or the car. One is aluminum, one is steel. Same with the center planet and same with the rear planet, 4 and 5 pinions. Pinion count doesn't really matter, but when it comes to ratios, it's the center ring gear, it's the ring gear and the sun gear that make the difference. So here we have the center ring gear count and the front ring gear tooth counts. Here we have the rear ring gear count and the front ring gear counts for you. And an added note here, that we want to, if we have a slipping in or no fourth or fifth issue, we want to be very critical of the welds, of the laser welds on the drum, on the shaft to the drum. Because if that starts cracking, you're going to get a big leak there. It's going to cause slipping, and it may even cause no fourth or fifth. So a very good idea to inspect this laser weld for cracks. Very important right there. Here we have the sun gear IDs for the center and the rear sun gear. Of course, that's where the sprag is. And for the that would be the front sun gear. The high-low support tube. One thing about this tube is very critical. There is a couple of different sizes, 9 1/4, 9 1/2, or 9 1/4 and 9 inches. And the one thing that you want to be careful of when you're replacing the sun gear shaft is you can see between the right and the left the difference of the ring locations. Say if you put a Subaru shaft in where a Nissan shaft goes, this will cause all kinds of shifting problems. Missing shifts, slipping shifts, may even cause shift solenoid codes. And I understand that you can look at these and see that they are in fact different. Yes, we can all see that. There's on the left we've got two lands with two bushing journals. I believe that's for the steel. I know that's for the steel drum where it's got the bushings inside of it. And on the right is where we have the aluminum drum. Well, what happens, you know, is where it's Friday afternoon, it's Friday at lunchtime, the truck's got to go, the boss is on the builder's wife's called, and the baby's got the flu, and he just notices that this shaft is no good, so he goes back to the back room and gets one, and you know he's still thinking about what's going on the weekend, and the next thing you know, we've got transmission slipping and solenoid codes, and the thing just works terrible. Well, that can happen. Hey, it happens. We all have been there, done that, and that actually happened to a personal friend of mine. I looked him up, and we were talking about this, and he goes, "Yeah, don't ever pay close attention to that because your shifting problems will pretty much happen as soon as you put this thing in gear. So just pay real close attention to those different sun gear shafts." Okay, here's the chart for the three different gear ratios and the three different. So then we have a chart for the different ratios. So if you get one that's all crunched up, well, you can look at our chart here and figure out which ratios you need. And I have taken the time to update these charts. These are the charts way back to 05 and 06. So we have them once again in our handout. That was Nissan. Now here we are at Infinity, and finally finishing up with Infinity and Kia down at the very bottom. I went through and looked up the most recent materials and put together a chart of the existing gear ratios. After 15, they either eliminated a model or they went to the RE5R05A, I believe is what it is, the new designation after 15, which you'll be seeing here probably within the next 6 or 8 months here from ATRA. So that's the 16, 15 is actually the last year this model is going to be used, and it had a pretty good run. And I think this transmission overall has been very good for our livelihood. So that's the updated chart for the gear ratio applications. Okay, to finish up this presentation, we're going to talk about a couple of assembly things and then a shifting issue. We've got a second design and a rattle for the reverse clutch. The first design on the right there, the tab just laid over the teeth of the steels, and now the tab on the second design also lays on, but only half of the steel there. The pressure plate goes in on top of that, holds the spring in place with the snap ring. So just be aware there are two designs here. Center support variations. There's 4 different types of supports depending on number of check balls, the height, and if it has a washer or not. We've received here at the tech line many calls where the builder is going back together in the unit, and he's got the bearing there glued into the center of the support before he puts it down in there, and he's like, wait a second. There should be a washer here. Well, actually, no, there shouldn't. There's no notches there, even though sometimes that doesn't click with our brains. It says, okay, look, there's no washers here. I didn't actually lose the washer because there's no tabs for the washer in the first place. So, but yeah, we've done several of these, and we remember that there's a washer there. Now we go back together with it. You're all like, whoa, wait a second, time out. And we start looking around the bench, and where did I do with that washer? And then we get the call, hey, what happened to the washer? Hey, buddy, it's okay, it was never there. Oh, I'm not crazy then. I knew I didn't lose the washer in the first place, but I had to make sure, right? Because we don't want to go through all the trouble assembling these improperly. So a quick phone call, no worries. Now you know that if there isn't one, chances are the notches, no washer. Ah, yes, to finish up with the old 2-3 slip shutter. Okay, there's lots of parts involved, lots of stuff involved with the apply of the high-low reverse drum. Okay, one of the things, you either have a mismatched combination of fluid and clutch material. We've seen that through Nissans over the years. Or you simply don't have enough clamping force to apply the clutch as fast as it needs to be. Well, of course there's a lot of stuff involved here, but take a look at this. There's six sealing rings involved in operating that high-low reverse clutch drum. And if those sealing rings aren't working spot on, or the surfaces they work on aren't spot on, that's going to be a problem. So let's just have a look here. So we need to make sure that the case, first of all, the center support fits nice and snug down into the case. And that's very critical because we don't want to lose any air there. Every place that we're going to lose air becomes extra critical in this situation because there's so many places for it to leak. Okay, so when you air test this using 10 to 20 psi, you're going to get some leaks here just by the very nature of it. You're going to put a little bit of oil down in there. Well, what we like to do is to remove the return spring as a test. Put it down in the case, and now we can air test that, and you'll hear it thump and hold air to it, and it'll make a real nice air check. But all the other factors have to be in line for that real nice air check, okay? Here's where we could see just how important the sealing rings are. This is an illustration of the circuit. Of course, over here on the right is our fluid coming from the valve body into the center support through the rear two rings. Left is the front, right is the back, okay? And then it goes through this passageway in between the two sealing rings on the shaft, and then up through these two sealing rings to the apply area for the drum itself. So that's where we can see this a nice cutaway of where the sealing rings are so important to be sealing correctly. Here we can see the areas of where the sealing rings ride, and also we see the AOD rings, the nickel-plated rings that we are using. Everybody is using these days for a proper seal. It's okay. The top two rings ride. Top two rings, okay, would ride in here. The bottom two rings here would ride in here. So if there's any kind of ring groove here, we've got to get rid of these parts. Same on the left with the center support, on the right with the drum. Any kind of ring wear, we've got to get new parts in there. Now here on the shaft, you can see you want to be sure to inspect the grooves on the shaft. Be sure that the rings don't have too much side clearance. This is the area that these four sealing rings on the sun gear shaft fit in between these two rings right here. So the oil comes in one side, through here, and up and out the other. That's what makes the rings on the shaft so critical. Of course, like I said, I liked oil schematics. Here we have the early, we don't have the late model or the third design hydraulics printed up yet. And here we have it in the second position. You could see circled in red is the high-low reverse clutch control valve. The valve is in its down position. We've got pilot valve oil holding the valve down. So it's very critical to check end plugs, springs, valve wear in this area. That valve working, if that valve gets lazy or is leaking, that's going to cause it to slowly apply and bring up that shudder or slip as well. So that area of the valve is pretty critical. So here we go. The computer commands the solenoid off. Now this is down here, the high-low reverse clutch solenoid is a normally open solenoid. So that means it's flowing fluid when it's turned off. So they this computer commands the high-low reverse clutch solenoid off. The valve strokes and lets oil go to the high-low reverse clutch. So that's what makes the end plugs, the screens, the springs, I'm sorry, so very critical, because all of those factors, the valves, the rings, the support, the drum, the case fitting, all of that stuff contributes to that 2-3 slip shutter. So it's very critical to manage all of those at one time, so that when we put the unit back together, we're ready to go, and the unit's going to go out and it's going to work fine for the duration of our warranty. Okay, that concludes our show for today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask away. If you do not, you can send us an email, what have you. Finished up enough time for you guys to chill out for the rest of your lunch hour. So I appreciate your attendance today. And if we have no further questions from our listeners, our attendees, then my name is Bill Brayton. Thank you for attending and have a wonderful day.